In today's video, we're going to take a look at framing, the movement that we want to do in grappling when we want to keep our opponent away from us. This movement obviously shows up quite a lot, and obviously, like all things that we cover, framing is skill dependent. You know, the better you are at framing as a function of how good you are at grappling, the more effective it's going to be. But that's not what we deal with. We deal with the physical preparation. So one of the things, or three of the things that we're going to take a look at in the video today, just to briefly introduce this, is going to be the tricep and how it contributes to extension at the elbow, the serratus anterior and how it contributes to upwardly rotating the scapula, and an exercise that we can use to take a look at that. And then training that overhead position that we see there overall in framing a little bit more. And also we're going to have an exercise that we can do with that. So let's dive into that. So the first one that we're going to take a look at is the tricep and how it contributes to extension at the elbow. So that is the primary function really of the tricep, is to extend the elbow. And when we're trying to keep a locked out frame, obviously we are trying to keep that elbow completely locked out. If our component can put enough weight on us that starts to bend and that frame starts to compress, well then we start to lose this frame, and that's not what we want. We obviously want to keep this locked out, and training the tricep is going to be the way that we're going to be able to contribute to keeping this much stronger. And an exercise that we're going to take a look at is the French press. So here in the French press, we can see that we're training the tricep in that lengthened position. It's also an exercise that's very easy to have access to. Like if you have a dumbbell, you can do this with any implement really, provided you don't hit yourself in the back of the head, please. But yeah, so with the French press, we're going to get the tricep into that lengthened position, and then we're also going to get a really nice lockout into the overhead position when we bring it through its shortened range of motion there. So that's really good because that's going to replicate that position that we're going to see with the overhead throughout this video. So that's why we would kind of choose this tricep variation. There's many other tricep variations that we could use in an effort to build up this tissue, but this is just one example that we kind of selected for this video. Okay, so with that taken care of, and we've seen a look at the French press, we're going to take a look at the windmill here as well. So now that with the windmill playing, we can see it, we're not going to see this musculature contribute as much, but it's more kind of understanding as to why this musculature would contribute here. The serratus anterior is like a big fan-like muscle, and we'll get a picture up on the screen here that is on your rib cage. And what it effectively does is it stabilizes that shoulder blade when your arm is in a locked out straight overhead position like that. So with the windmill, when we bend over like that, the shoulder blade has to kind of glide over the rib cage a little bit, and it's the serratus anterior that's going to contribute to stabilizing that. The windmill can be a little bit challenging when you're trying to sit into it at the hip. So be aware of that and start these nice and slowly, but this is an excellent exercise to get a bit of training in that area. Another exercise that we can do that's a little bit less difficult and has a lower barrier to entry is going to be something that we call a wall glide. There are probably 100 different names for this exercise out there. This is just what we call them. This is going to allow us to drive the roller up the wall, and we're going to get a really nice stimulus through that muscle in a slightly different way to how we get it in the windmill, but it's two different ways to load that tissue. So there's just two different options for you there. Now that we've taken a look at 1 and 2, we're going to take a look at number 3, and we just want to train in that overhead position for a little bit of time. And here's an exercise that we can use in an effort to spend a bit of time there. So with the march here, we're just going to basically be spending a bit of time in this overhead position, and we can do this for any length of time really. We usually program it for somewhere to 30 seconds up to a minute, but you could realistically program it up to 90 seconds plus, and it wouldn't really be any problem provided the overhead load isn't super heavy, and it's going to be something that challenges the athlete as the set progresses longer and longer. The march is really nice because it's going to allow us to cycle through the single legs and get that nice benefit as well. It's pretty tough, so you get a nice conditioning stimulus out of this as well. The march is one example that we could take a look at carrying the dumbbells or the kettlebells as well, and that will be absolutely no problem. Again, we're just trying to spend time in that locked out overhead position so we can increase our tolerance to fatigue there, so that when we go to frame in training, we've spent a bit of time in that position and the musculature is tolerant to that. That way, you're not just getting exposed to it in training, but you're actually getting exposed to it in the gym as well. Nice one. So in that, we took a look through number 1, tricep extension at the elbow, and how the French press is an exercise that we can use to train that. The windmill and the wall glide to train our serratus anterior, another muscle that's going to contribute to maintaining stability in that overhead position with the locked out elbow. And then lastly, we took a look at the march and how we were going to take a little bit of training time and spend that time in that overhead position to increase tolerance to fatigue in that position. So If you like those, that's a really good thing to add into your training to improve the strength of your frames. If you really like that video, give it a like, comment, subscribe, do all that sort of thing. It'll help us get more YouTube videos out to you, and we'll see you next time.